Men of the Silent Service, submarine service, proved their offensive strength during the First World War. 20 years of peacetime development produced and developed the unknown power of underwater warfare. Stories and records of this war have been highly restricted on submarine activity. Nothing of this vital service was to leak out. Nothing was to be told. Men volunteered for this specialized duty, each with the full realization of his individual responsibility aboard a ship whose duty was to operate alone, underwater, against the enemy. Prowling, they call it, operating for months at a time, alone. The men aboard a submarine get to know one another pretty well. Have you ever seen the close, compact quarters, the utilization of every possible space, the spirit among the men of pride in each other and dependence? More than any other group in the fleet, the submarine crews are highly skilled and selected upon mental attitude and ability. Besides tough technical examinations, men receive intense medical tests, determining their adaptability to submarine duty. It's no wonder that those chosen would feel that pride of a closely knit outfit. Enlisting under the Navy's V-7 program in September 16th of 1940, young John Balson began his training aboard one of the oldest battle wagons of the fleet, the USS Arkansas. The program included a reserve midshipman's training at Annapolis, followed by a reserve officer's commission. In a weak moment, Ensign John Balson volunteered for submarine service. That was June of 1941. After highly specialized training, this fellow served with the Atlantic submarine fleet for 2 years. Well, you know the story of the Battle of the Atlantic and the German U-boat campaign. Those early days of the war were doubly difficult because we were fighting a superior enemy force. However, in the Pacific, it was to be a different story. It took us quite a while to roll the new submarines into commissioning, but the Queenfish, Redfish, the Segundo were among those put into commission in 1944. Going aboard the Segundo before commissioning day, John Balson has had every job aboard a submarine, building experience to give us some of those heretofore restricted slants on the silent service. Yes, the submarine completely submerges in less than a minute. The first sensation for men aboard is pressure felt in the ears, and the smoothness as the ship leaves the rough seas of the surface. For hours on end, no one aboard has visual contact unless the submarine is moving within periscope depth and someone is stationed for periscope. 75 men and 10 officers go down for 12 to 15 hours, hunting enemy surface ships for the duration of their patrol, the average of which is 2 months' duration. Then the ship returns to an advanced base and the subtender. Going out again on another patrol, the men know what's expected, and they do the job. Well named is this, the silent service. To speak of one submarine specifically is the only way to achieve anything of the real picture. Oftentimes we've read colorful adventures of these ships slipping stealthily to the blackness of enemy waters. Hidden treasures and all the rest of it are always included, but actual reality holds a great deal more. It deals with tension, weariness, and an unforeseen treasure too, in the specific case of the USS Segundo. What finer climax to years of submarine service than the capture of a Japanese submarine? Prize winnings for the Segundo as she sailed into Tokyo Bay with the captured enemy vessel, the largest submarine in the world. That's the story of the silent service of the USS Segundo, of young Lieutenant Commander John Balson. Well, John, we can build your story to its true proportions, but instead, we want you to give it to us yourself.
That's kind of tough, Lynn. It's not a one-man story. Most of us have been aboard since commissioning, about 15 months. We were a lucky ship. We were never really depth charged. The records went something like 17 ships sunk for us. By that August 28th, we had orders not to shoot unless provoked, and we were headed for Tokyo Bay to meet the rest of the submarines in the occupational force. We didn't know what it was, but we picked up an unidentified target on the radar. We stayed in radar contact with it until morning, about 100 miles off the coast of Honshu.
Well, how did the fellows feel about it?
We were pretty excited. We know it wasn't any of our ships, and no enemy vessels were supposed to have been in the area. However, we assumed it to be a Jap. During the night, as we were following the target, we didn't know exactly what to do. Had it not been for the cease-firing orders, the solution would have been simple. We couldn't shoot at them, and we didn't trust them very much. So when dawn came, we sent them an international signal to stop and surrender. We then identified it as a Japanese submarine. They righted for the signal and stopped. We closed them to about 500 yards and kept our torpedo tubes trained on them. One officer and one enlisted man left the ship in a rubber boat.
What was the plan?
They just went over to bring a Jap officer back so we could talk surrender terms. About a half hour later, they returned with a Japanese sub-lieutenant who could speak a little English. We got them aboard and started talking on the bridge.
What did that amount to?
We found the Japanese submarine was the I-401 and was en route to Ominato, a Japanese naval base. They didn't have enough fuel to go to Tokyo and were definitely set on proceeding to Ominato. Guess they were pretty worried about the reception waiting for them in Tokyo, and then too they would lose face in passing our fleet at anchor in the bay. We were not sold on the idea of their being short of fuel, and finally found out later that they had plenty aboard. Anyhow, we ordered them to proceed with us to Tokyo Bay under our guns. We had quite a time deciding about the prize crew that we put aboard. We ran into hara-kiri threats and all the rest of it before the 6 of us left the Segundo. I had 5 enlisted men with me, and we were all dressed in dungarees. The Jap captain had threatened to kill himself if an American officer went aboard, so I went over as an enlisted man.
Well, how long did it take you before you were finally underway?
About 4 hours. From then on, I stayed on that Jap bridge for 3 days and 2 nights. The submarine itself had been neglected for a long time. The Japanese characteristic of not taking care of their equipment. The filth was terrible. When I first went aboard, I sent 2 men down below to inspect the torpedoes and set them on safe so they couldn't be fired.
Did you carry any guns?
Yes. All members of the boarding party were equipped with .45 automatics and Mae West life preservers. The men reported that there were no torpedoes aboard. All 6 of us stayed on the bridge during the entire trip. We stood 3-hour watches, watch on, watch off. Up on deck with us, we kept an inflated rubber boat. The greatest danger we figured would be the submarine diving out from under us to escape. In that case, we planned to ride the submarine down as far as possible and then to swim over to the rubber boat. In the meantime, our men in the Segundo just kept their torpedo tubes trained on us. Our prearranged plan at 5 o'clock the morning of the 31st, we cut down the black surrender flag and raised the American flag. This ceremony was conducted without a hitch and with no apparent Jap reaction. Right afterwards, however, the Japanese captain asked permission to throw the body of the submarine division commander over the side. He had apparently just committed hara-kiri. The pleasure was ours.
What was their general reaction to you?
They were as friendly as could be expected. We didn't eat any of their food, as we had our own with us, which was a little more appetizing. The official surrender took place that same day with raise the American flag. At 11 o'clock that day, the Japanese gave me 2 officer's swords as a symbol of surrender. At that time, we were about 70 miles from Tokyo. That same afternoon, just outside of Tokyo, a regular American prize crew came out and relieved us. It was the only submarine ever captured by another submarine. From there on, we went to Tokyo.